Hello, welcome to 30 Minutes, where each week we try to cram into a half hour as much as we can about the various aspects, different corners of life in the area. I want to get right to today's topic because it's something that's been on my mind for quite a while. The topic is aggressive driving, or sometimes called road rage. I've been caught up in it myself twice, and I know several people who are somewhat fearful of heading out on the road because they've heard of others who have had similar incidents or they've experienced it once and that was enough. My guest today is Lieutenant Chris Flanagan of the Radnor Police Highway Patrol Division. Welcome, Lieutenant. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And these sessions are always very informative. I contacted you about this particular topic principally because of a recent news account of a 4-year-old child who was killed as a result of road rage, where the child's father had an altercation with another driver. There was an incident, a gun was pulled, and then the tragedy, yet another senseless tragedy. Well, let's begin by defining our terms, because until I started doing some of the reading myself, I didn't realize that there is a difference, and perhaps from a legal standpoint, between aggressive driving and road rage. Is there a difference, and is it an important one?
In our interpretation, yes, because what we believe and what some of the campaigns that are out there is that an aggressive style of driving leads to road rage. Now, sometimes if you get enraged or get road rage, in other words, you're driving normally, that could switch you in that moment of rage to an aggressive driver. So although the terms are different, or some apply aggressive driving at the beginning that causes road rage, and then sometimes somebody gets from normal driving into rage, which makes them an aggressive driver. This driving pattern becomes the issue, and then it creates very, very strong emotions and different levels of reactions from the many different people on the road.
I read that according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and now I'm reading, the number of deaths related to road rage is difficult to track, but estimates are that aggressive driving accounts for about 1/3 of all crashes and about 2/3 of resulting fatalities. That's astonishing.
It is, and statistics are a very good awareness, but I think what's amazing is each one of us has a story, and I know you shared some of your stories with us that according to the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, they also state that 56% of the fatal crashes in the United States have some component of either road rage or aggressive driving associated with it. And the reason they can't track it is they believe that sometimes these accidents have occurred because somebody did something, but they ended up fleeing away, or are even unaware potentially that they did something that caused a devastating accident or fatality.
Let's call it aggressive driving that it can lead to road rage, but is aggressive driving increasing as a problem regionally, nationally? Do we see a lot of it here in Radnor Township?
We get dispatched by Delaware County Radio, and we are seeing an increase of either aggressive drivers where people talk about a pattern of driving. They're tailgating, going over the double yellow line, and then we also have reports of accidents due to a road rage incident and possible fight involved or a heated argument coming over. So we are seeing an increase. Clearly, we have heavily traveled roads such as Lancaster Avenue, Conestoga Road, Darby Paoli Road, but every road is susceptible to this, and that's something important to remember. Just like an accident, you should wear your seatbelt in your neighborhood because that's where a lot of the accidents occur. Same thing is you need to be prepared for these driving patterns and behaviors even in your own neighborhood, not just a super highway or Lancaster Avenue.
You know, it's been a long time since I took my driver's test. I got my driver's license, but I don't recall then, and so the question is today, is there instruction as part of the test and the preparation for the test to get a driver's license these days?
Not taking it recently, but I know the goal of the driver's test is to make sure that the new driver, whatever age they may be, has the skills to avoid creating a problem or frustration. So in other words, if you put your turn signal on in time, then people will know to change lanes if they want to keep moving. So there's a skill, even though it's maybe not listed as how to avoid road rage. Really, if you follow the rules of the road and you follow the guidelines in your driving manual, then that will help reduce incidents that occur.
But so much of it is common courtesy. which we seem to be losing in our society as part of the loss of civility. But it is common courtesy, common sense. I was wondering as well whether or not, from your experience and the research you've done, is it a generational thing? Do we see more aggressive driving among older people, younger people, or even a gender issue, more among men or women?
What I would say is that I don't have information on that. What I think is everybody now is susceptible to this,
Yeah.
and everybody has probably seen. I know that everybody who's been on the road more than a year has seen a road rage or an aggressive driver, or been involved in a very particular incident themselves, or too close for comfort situation.
Right.
So I think everybody has the opportunity to become aggressive. I think road rage is a very easy thing. I think the number of vehicles, as we discussed earlier, leasing options, other
Yeah.
things, families used to have one car
Yep.
10, 20 years ago. Now they have up to 2 to 3. So there's a lot of different factors that have altered many different things, from roadways being much busier, easier access to vehicles, different loans, other items like that, all are small but very important contributing factors to this issue.
Well, the two incidents that I was personally involved in, the one was the gentleman, the other driver, was probably in his 60s. He stopped dead in his tracks, bolted out of his car, screaming, hollering, flailing, really quite abusive. And the other one was a younger man, probably in his 30s or 40s. Once in the first case, he was at fault. That is the other driver. He went through a stop sign.
Okay.
In the second case, it was my fault. I knew it was my fault as soon as he called it to my attention. I simply wasn't paying attention to the rotational etiquette that we should be observing from somebody coming into an intersection. But it was frightening. It was frightening. I was with my wife. It was frightening because there's nothing you can do. You feel absolutely impotent. This in both cases, this man is coming at you, and you're not quite sure if he's going to damage the car, if he's going to smash the windshield, because he's in a rage. What counsel do you give people who are caught in that kind of a situation?
Well, one of the key things is to follow the rules of the road, as we discussed earlier.
Yes.
We want to try and avoid this as much as possible, and we also want to try and not create a situation, whether it's accidental, like your situation, where we don't get the chance to meet a road rage person, if at all possible. So we really have to drive smart. We really have to make sure we're paying attention to speed, stop signs, turns, etc. However, no matter how hard you try, there's going to be accidents, misintentions. Yes. Once that happens, it's very important how you handle that. You got to remember, when you're in a vehicle, it's almost like being in your house. It's a very personal space to people, and if something happens, people feel like they're defending their home almost in some occurrences.
Violated. Yeah.
And that's why you see some of these reactions. If in the scenario where the gentleman got out of the car and started approaching you in a very aggressive manner, if he doesn't back off, we think immediately you should contact 911. You can inform him to stay away. We don't want you to engage, get in a fight, or go back and forth, because nobody's going to win.
Right, exactly.
Once somebody's displayed
the lawyers may win.
The lawyers may win, but I think when we see this type of behavior, we know communication right at that second isn't going to work. They're so enraged that we have to let them calm down. And by you instigating or even trying to defend your position, even with the best intentions, could end. All else fails, back up. Try and remove out of the way. You want to move away from the person who's walking up to you and try and remain as safe as possible. Try and re-enter traffic as soon as possible. And we think that you should contact 911 in that situation. Let them know what's going on. We've heard that some people are able to do that, or the car that they maybe unintentionally cut off or missed is now following them. We believe that with aggressive horn, anything like that, 911 should be called. If that vehicle follows you to your house, you absolutely should call 911. Keep moving if possible. Don't get out of your car so they have a chance to interact with you. Just keep on a slow motion. Not driving aggressively, not trying to speed away.
Yes.
But notify police. Stay on the phone with the dispatcher. Inform her all the descriptive factors that are going on, what occurred, and location. And they're going to talk you through what the police or the dispatcher wants you to do, because every scenario is a little bit different.
Let's follow that through, Lieutenant. So a call is made to 911. An officer shows up. It's at that point still my word against the other person's word and vice versa. How does an officer determine who was at fault? How is he or she able to reconstruct what happened? And what are the consequences?
Well, the police are very used to, especially vehicle incidents. So we're
Yeah.
very busy in our township, as many other are, with major intersections and highways. So we handle accident investigations all the time. Two different sides of the story, and somewhere between those stories lies the truth.
Yes.
And we always use that line. So we like to separate each party, ask each of them their story. If there's other witnesses, we'll of course ask them, and then come up with a conclusion. Usually it's fairly easy, and then sometimes we have to get into it or review each person's statement again to make a conclusion. Or sometimes it's a draw, and sometimes both people were wrong. And if people insist on people being cited, then there's different things. What people forget is if you misbehave in a car, you could be charged with a vehicle, several vehicle violations. You could be charged with assault if you were to physically hurt somebody. Using names or threatening behavior, you could be charged with various charges for just saying that, such as harassment, other things. If you're following somebody repeatedly, that could be stalking. So what people forget is when you're in a car, you could be charged with crimes code violations as well. That could get very serious, frankly. And then, of course, if you damage somebody's vehicle or something else, you're open for the civil side of it as well, which the police don't deal with, but it still is an issue. So these incidents quickly become potentially criminal actions based on people's behaviors.
Okay. I have a question here. What are the most common triggers that can result in road rage? I just have a quick list to ask you to react to it.
And
I'm sorry, go on.
No, and I have a couple answers. And one of the goals of the two different campaigns that I reviewed to reduce road rage and aggressive driving was to avoid being sucked into that type of pattern where we see it. One of the biggest ones is tailgating and horn blowing. There's something about those two, or the first two that are mentioned in two of the documents that we talked about. Obviously, there's near-miss accidents, or somebody doesn't see somebody, or you won't let somebody in, or somebody cuts in front of you so close it upsets you because you feel like there was an accident. But those seem to be the tailgating and the horn blowing and the cutting off really seem to be the major events that trigger road rage.
But if I'm behind someone who is going 18 miles an hour in a 35-mile zone for a long stretch of road, and there are cars behind, it's a parade, what recourse do I have? Can I call 911 and say we have a driver up front who is either deliberately or there's something wrong?
And don't forget, when you see something like that, you just mentioned it, deliberately something wrong. We could have a medical emergency. It could be an elderly person who just is lost. It could be a lost person who's trying to find their way. So there's many different reasons. If it's clogging up traffic and there's that big of an impact, then you should call 911. Let the police go investigate, make sure everything's okay. And if it's fine, then everybody can keep moving. But if not, or you're able to legally go around them or make a safe maneuver around them, then that would be fine as well. But honking on a horn, riding their bumper, scaring them are the things that we want to avoid.
But in that instance, if I were to call 911, someone who's going considerably under the speed limit, and an officer does show up, it's an embarrassment to the driver. So much so, couldn't the driver then take action against me for having caused that embarrassment, that humiliation? He was simply going 18 miles an hour because he thought that was the safe.
We haven't had any where people have reported stuff and it's all ended up working out. We've never had any type of negative follow-up on that. Yeah, I mean, sometimes the people who are stopped or involved with the police are concerned, but the reality is it would be easily observed by the police officer this vehicle was doing 18 miles an hour in a 35 or 40 mile an hour zone. It's creating a traffic impact and could create an accident, could create a road rage incident, and could affect emergency services, fire trucks, ambulances, etc. And on highways and things, one of the things that people don't realize is they actually monitor road closures when accidents and other things occur, because it really truly affects commerce in this country. When an airport is shut down or a major roadway is shut down, it actually has a very direct financial impact when those incidents occur. Something people don't really think about.
Are there certain times of the year that aggressive driving, road rage spike, incidents of road rage and aggressive driving?
In this area, there isn't a study or specific evidence, but we definitely
but
feel
just
that
anecdotally.
we feel sometimes that the holidays
Sure.
In this area, there's just no parking. People are fighting for the two parking spaces, or competing for the high-end parking spaces right in front of the store on the rainy day or the freezing cold day. A lot of shopping goes on, a lot of people in town, a lot of visitors. So those are sometimes some of the impacts. But again, this can happen on the simplest sunny day with beautiful weather, so you always have to be prepared for it.
Yeah. No, I guess in addition to different times of the year, I'm thinking about Lancaster Avenue, Route 30, particularly down around 476, the ramps coming off, on and off. Congested area. Many people, I shouldn't say many, I've seen many people who weren't quite aware of where they were, so they had to ease their way over into a left lane or a right lane, which can be disruptive, particularly if they haven't been paying attention. It's even worse when you see somebody on the phone, so you know they weren't paying attention. And as a result of that, they start to jam into a lane to make a turn or whatever. I guess which gets us to the other thing, people on the phone or otherwise using a device.
One of the things they call it is distracted drivers.
Yeah.
So distracted drivers can have clearly more mistakes that would be the cutoff scenario or over tailgating, hence making somebody else get upset and it switches to a road rage. Distracted driving is a big impact right now on vehicle accidents, and we are checking off boxes on our state reportables such as cell phone, computer, your map systems, whether it's an independent one mounted in a car or one that's now integrated into your system. The other thing that's interesting is a lot of people are doing business from the vehicle.
Yes.
So they're under pressure. So the perfect world would be you don't hear anything, you're in a totally quiet environment having a peaceful drive. That isn't reality. You have cell phones going on, husbands and wives trying to meet deadlines, make school plays, business people who have 5 minutes to get to a meeting and were stopped by an accident or a street sweeper. So we have many different components going on. They're conducting business, they're talking to loved ones, they're dealing with issues. So that is taking them away from doing it and also putting a level of stress on them so that one small incident that normally wouldn't affect somebody who's calm, not involved in anything, may make them go right off the charts with an anger response based on a simple incident that happened on the road.
Well, what kind of training, if someone is cited for aggressive driving, in addition to paying a fine and whatever, is there a training program that they have to complete?
Right now, no. I mean, if you did it, if you did enough
anger
things,
management program of some kind.
If you were cited, you can be cited for reckless driving. Yes. You could be cited for careless driving. Those are two of the biggest, one of the most significant charges on the vehicle code, with the biggest one being, with the exception of DUI, of course, but the biggest one being running a school bus. And I always like to plug that we have to be very cognizant when we're on our phone, we're doing whatever, typing in our next address we have to go to. We have to be watching out for school buses and other things, because that's a very important and a habitual problem here in this township of people running the red lights of a school bus, especially on 4-lane roads. Lancaster Avenue, we have a significant amount of problems that come from that. But again, all those distracting factors, to answer your question, can take away from that roadway safety.
Yeah. How long have you been on the force?
Just about 16 years. 16
years. But it's this whole subject of driving etiquette. Again, it goes back to just being common sense, common courtesy. So many of the things we are not aware of, we simply don't practice as much anymore. All of us seem to be much more defensive. We're protecting ourselves against other people, whether it's on the road or walking down the street or whatever. Is that part of the environment, or is it some of the contributory factors that are resulting in increases in road rage and aggressive driving? The lack of civility.
Well, I think before we get to the issue of civility, which I don't know if I can answer or not, one of the things that they talk about in this is they want in these campaigns to avoid these situations from occurring. So they ask you to do a self-analysis on your driving habits. So really we're talking about, are you a good driver? Do you follow those rules of the road? But in other words, do you hammer it? Do you blow your horn a lot? do you have a safety mechanism or a practice that if somebody did do something to you, such as cut you off or tailgate you, do you have a system in play that you could take a deep breath, count to 5, whatever it may be, to calm yourself down and say, is this really an incident that I need to be involved in or get myself worked up? And then once you do that, they also want to make sure that you really are saying, do you know the rules of the road? Are you holding your cell phone so that it doesn't allow you to turn on your turn signal? Some of those type of things that will really help everybody avoid having these conflicts. And then once you have these conflicts, are you actually able to keep yourself calm to the point of civility that you were talking about? Are you able to keep yourself calm, and can you just walk away from it? Is it really that valuable to get back at the person?
Yes.
And they give you some ideas. Steer clear of the incident. Avoid eye contact. If somebody beeps the horn and they really do something, do you need to respond back? Do you need to use an improper word? Do you need to make a gesture with your hand to engage or up the ante? Or can you actually walk away? You know, and I like to think that all of us can, but every now and then you're having a tough day. But they talk about having this plan at the deep breath or counting to 5 before you respond, and then you don't want to do this. And remember, when you take these actions, sometimes you could have people, or most importantly, your family or a child in the car with you. And is that worth them getting hurt? You have to think about the consequences. This happens on the highway. Somebody didn't see you. Did they really intentionally do that, or was it an accident? You let it go, and then you drive on safely by. But if you engage, now you're at 50, 60 miles an hour. What could happen if we have a vehicle connection? Even if it's unintentional, how many lives could be affected by a multi-vehicle pileup and deaths and everything else?
How many citations does one have to receive for aggressive driving before their license is lifted?
Once you receive over 11 points, you have a suspension of your license. If you work off 1 point a year, if you don't have any incidents within that year. So some speeding tickets have 2 to 3 points, and it just keeps increasing, depending on what goes on.
Yeah. What's the relationship, if there is one, between alcohol, drug use, and aggressive driving and road rage? I would think.
Well, again,
it's significant.
Well, I think that they are absolutely an increased factor, such as when people are intoxicated, that there's a better chance of having a fight at a stadium or something else.
Right.
So apply that to driving, which is not a good mix in the first place, but apply that to a stressful situation, and now we know that it's harder to keep control of our emotions. You're more loud. You're more have an incident to react than normal. Or over-dramatize the incident. So alcohol, drugs, and anything else like that, or being under a horribly stressful day. Say you had a horribly stressful day, or you lost a big account at a meeting. Maybe you let the other person drive home. You're upset. Take a minute, or stop at a rest stop, take a walk, cool yourself down, get a nice non-caffeine related beverage, a nice glass of water or a milkshake, calm down, then get back on the road, reset. But those are things that you could do to avoid it. Clearly, alcohol can magnify things in a great way. Drugs, alcohol, or prescription medicines can take you to another level more quickly than if you're in your normal condition.
Yep. I hope I don't have another experience, because, as I said, it was really traumatic. And it's the sense of there's your head is saying there's no point in getting involved in this because it will not have a good outcome. There's no way to rationally communicate with this individual because they're in a rage. They don't want to hear anything. On the other hand, as I said at the outset, you feel impotent. You feel you do want to strike back to protect yourself and to protect, as in the case with a family member in the car. So it's a tough call, a tough decision to make when you're under that kind of stress. In the 2 instances that I had, I chose to keep my mouth shut. And I hadn't thought about it, but as you already pointed, I did not make eye contact, because I knew if I did make eye contact, I would be engaged with that person. And again, there's nothing to say other than in the second case, when it was clearly my fault, I'm sorry. I didn't even have a chance to say I'm sorry, because he was just out of control. So I didn't want to have anything to say to him.
Sometimes when you engage, you feel like you don't have the ability to back down. It just keeps going, because again, that car is like your living room, your home. So you really have to really try not to engage, because that will leave it that it's really easy for everybody to dissipate. That's very wise thing. In AAA's program, in the beginning preface, they state that this is a major issue for the American people, road rage and aggressive driving. It's very important. It's becoming more and more prevalent, and everybody's studying it. They also say, again, evaluate your own driving. So before you leave that driveway or the office, make sure you're not part of the problem by driving too fast, forgetting to use your turn signal, taking on too much business or personal matters while driving. Second is don't engage. If something does happen, you just can't back down. Steer clear, back down, slow down, move away, or call 911, get off at the rest stop, let them keep going. And then the other one they really ask you is your attitude in their three-step process, is your attitude correct? Don't whine about it. Don't get yourself so wronged. Were you really wronged, or was it an inconvenience or something that startled you? They suggest that you put yourself in the driver's shoes, the other driver's shoes. Maybe they're going to the hospital. Maybe they have a sick child. Maybe there's something going on.
That's good counsel.
Consider other people, because it may just say, is this really worth it? Let them go ahead.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll calm down. And maybe they see your spirit because they made an accident. And maybe that'll take them down. And then there is something that if you are one of the drivers who is doing this, where you find yourself having road rage incidents or aggressive driving all the time, maybe you should ask for help from your physician or a loved one. There's many people in this area who are very high stress jobs, whatever they may be. Every job is important. But if many places have an EAP, an Employee Action Program, where you could talk about aggressive driving. That can be an issue that could be dealt with. You talk about it, and next thing you know, you're doing a lot better. So those are the three avenues that AAA recommends to try and deal with it or avoid this.
Does Radnor Township or the state have regular campaigns, anti-aggressive driving campaigns?
Yes, we actually have. Radnor Township is very fortunate. We are very proactive in aggressive driving, and we have received grants, which I'm very proud of. Officer Ray Mattis of the Highway Patrol Unit puts in for different grants, and we get awarded money to go out and slow people down, watch for tailgating, watch for other factors of aggressive driving. And the state actually compensates us for that, so it's no burden to the taxpayers. And you'll see a very large orange sign in several municipalities across the Commonwealth participate in that, but we do get awarded quite a bit of details. And you'll see the large sign that says aggressive driving. We proactively hand out during the stop a thing that helps avoid it. It's small, it's not as large as a normal handout, to hopefully trigger that driver's thought. We hope it works. The state believes it's working, and we're slowing down. And the state bases this off of complaints, meaning citizens who have called in things, and also vehicle accidents and pedestrian areas. So heavy pedestrian areas, we want to have extra enforcement, because obviously if you're a pedestrian versus a vehicle, you know, it's self-explanatory what could happen.
I guess the bottom line is life is too short. It just isn't worth it. Calm down.
Calm down. Be safe.
Yeah.
I really suggest everybody take a chance to look at a website. We're not necessarily saying anyone. You did some research. I looked at AAA. There's many good campaigns out there. Take a look. And take the time to teach new drivers these things we're talking about. Because I think if we keep passing it down the road, hopefully it'll become more common.
You're right. If you go on the internet, there's some really interesting quizzes, self-administered tests. You can take, this one goes from the aggressive zone to the hostile zone to the war zone. And you can see, and responding to these questions, and I did it, that it can very easily slip very quickly from just an inconsequential incident to what they call the war zone, where you're ready to go to war. The adrenaline's pumping. It's pointless. It's crazy. Thank you so much, as always, for coming over, visiting with us, and imparting some really good information. So drive safely. Do not drive aggressively. Stay out of my neighborhood. Until next time, this is 30 Minutes. I am Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves.